Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the First Congregational Church of Laingsburg's digital online service. My name is Troy, and I will be your host this week. You can check in and let us know in the comments down at the bottom of the page you're viewing on. And you can also let us know about any concerns or good things that you would like to share with the community, and we can lift both of those up in prayer together. This week is this Sunday in Easter, which is an evening season, and it's a season where we explore the significance of the resurrection of Christ and the meaning it has on our world today, and our responsibility toward that world as people of God. We also start a new series called It Is Time that focuses our attention towards Pentecost, which is in a few weeks. And to help us explore, we have a few prayers, reading, and poems for us to share along the way. Blessings on the journey.
We wait to hear the whole creation sing, but even here redeemed we start the song. Begin the praise of heaven's Lord and King. So praise him, all you angels, all the throng of beings whose intelligence and love our mortal minds can scarcely grasp, and whose energy and joy reaches above our range, yet somehow glimmers through the veil of our own Eucharist. Our partial love is joined with theirs in singing, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. The earth and heaven are full of glory. One day we'll be wholly drawn up into the sanctus. We'll be given a harmony with all created things as earth herself is lifted into heaven. This was Psalm 148, retold by Malcolm Guite.
Our candle lighting. We light this single candle during the Easter season to remind us that Christ is the light of the world. As this candle dispels that darkness around it, may our lives, filled with the life and love of God, illuminate the world with the kindness and justice of God through both our actions and attitudes.
Well, good morning all, and welcome to the fifth Sunday of Easter, which is a time of new beginnings, fresh starts, and revived life. Now, Easter is the proclamation that death has been defeated and love proved more powerful than violence, hatred, betrayal, fear, and all like these that systemic power asks of anyone who desires inclusion into its worldly prosperity and protection. Now, today is also the start of a new series called It Is Time, and this turns our attention towards Pentecost, which is coming very soon. Now, last week we looked at John 10's interaction between Jesus and some Pharisees, and this week we're going to be in John 13. And this is directly after Judas leaves to betray Jesus. Before we get there, I got a story for you. Now, I keep some binoculars by a few windows in our house because I love to see the wildlife that comes by. In our back field there is deer and turkey, which are very common. But there's also a lot of kinds of birds, and we love to do the bird watching around here. It's hard to identify them sometimes without a really good look. We've had some eagles fly over our barn recently, and it's always good to have a pair of binoculars handy so you can see them quickly and you don't have to go running around the house looking for them and then miss the entire event totally. Now, as a kid, I remember looking through the binoculars the wrong way, but on purpose to make my friends seem like they're far away. And then you reverse it and turn them around, and then you watch them come up real close. Now, this happens through the refraction of light, through the curved lenses. Don't understand it all, but that's kind of a summary of it. Now, we all have a lens that we bring to the scriptures, and if we get things backward, it makes God seem really far away. But if we line things properly, it can make God come closer. Now, when reading the scriptures, it's important that Christ become the primary lens we use to view all of the scriptures. The confusing and violent stories of the Old Testament, some of the weird laws of the Levitical Code, some of these mythical-like stories that seem foreign to us in a scientific modern society, and even some weird Paul commands concerning genders and families and people groups and hierarchies in some established society. All of these can be difficult to bring forward a few millennia and put into practice in a modern society. And they kind of place God in a very alien, distant, historical place. Now, to do so is to have the lens backwards. We use the character and life of Christ to reveal the character and life of God, and use that to interpret all other scriptures. Now, the danger of today's text is to focus on the wrong thing, because the topic is suffering and glorification, and oftentimes human suffering can be so intense that it receives all the wrong focus, which is to glorify the wrong thing. Now, today's text makes sure that the focus glorifies Christ and not the crucifixion. The crucifixion is a result of individual slavery to systemic human evil and just carrying out what it does best. Punishment to somebody who would not bow the knee to the powers that be. The crucifixion was anticipated by God, but not initiated and planned by God. It was instead redeemed by God's faithful love. Why is this an important distinction? Well, if the inevitable suffering that we endure in this life is God's plan and God's purpose and God's design, then God is the architect of evil. And our brains have a hard time imagining a God that is pure goodness. So then we glorify our sufferings and incorporate it into God's character. We don't know what else to do with it. We've been doing it for ages. How many times have you said, well, God won't give you more than you can handle? There are even stories in the Old Testament that have God wielding evil or suffering as part of some divine plan. But these stories are not consistent with the character of Christ, and we must use the gospel revelation of Christ as the interpreting factor for all our scriptures, or we get a God that is just mixed up with a whole bunch of evil and dishing out evil. God won't give you much more than you can handle. It says that God is giving you trials, tribulations, hard times, suffering, and pain. And God doesn't do that. So we're going to explore this passage a little bit and see what it has for us on the other side.
Good morning. When he was gone, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give you, love one another, as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another."
Well, hey, what a tremendously confusing passage that was, right? Well, Eugene Peterson said that all the water in the ocean can't sink a ship unless it gets inside. Now keep this in mind for a minute while we kind of untangle some of these glories here and there. Now, it starts off with the phrase, "when he was gone." Well, isn't this an interesting way to start a sentence? It tells me that we entered the conversation midstream and we might be missing some vital information. So, who was the he? Where did he go? So let's hit rewind for a moment. Chapters 1 through 11 cover the 7 miraculous signs that Jesus does, ending with the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Chapter 12 starts the final week of Jesus' ministry. He enters Jerusalem and claims the throne, declaring himself the Messiah and initiating the Passion Week that leads up to the crucifixion. And a big event just happened, the Last Supper. This is the day prior to the crucifixion. Judas has a plan to betray Jesus to the authorities, and Jesus knows this and boldly looks him in the eyes and says, "What you are about to do, do quickly." And then he leaves, and the book of John notes that it becomes night. Now this both signifies the time of day and the darkness Jesus warned them about in chapter 9 when he was taken from them, and night descends. Now enter our passage, when he, Judas, was gone to betray Jesus to the authorities. Now, Jesus then says his next line, "Now the Son of Man is glorified." This is a really complicated sounding passage. where Jesus is glorified, God is glorified in Jesus, and Jesus is glorified in God, and all this happens right now. And there's like this web of glory that's woven together, and you can't really tell who's being glorified and who's doing the glorifying. And that's kind of the point, though. There is no distinction between God, the Creator, and Christ the Son. As Jesus said earlier, I and the Father are one. And last week we talked about how this is good news. Jesus is the full revelation of what God is like. And what does it mean that the Son of Man is glorified, by the way? It doesn't seem like much has changed. His clothes are not shining. He's not wearing a superhero cape or anything. And he's about to suffer and die. So anonymous Franciscan friar over at friarmusings.com defines this glorification in his blog as referring to either the giving of praise or the manifestation of that which is worthy of praise. So that's what glorification is. So while you think that Jesus is glorified after the resurrection or after the ascension, where he goes back up to heaven, this revelation of God's worthiness is seen most clearly in Christ's willingness to endure the passion instead of bowing the knee to the evil human power structures that exist. And the passion has been initiated with Jesus' invitation for Judas to go and do what you're going to do, and do it quickly. God's willingness to endure human evil in love is a revelation of how great that love is and how powerfully redemptive it will become. This is why the glorification starts now and not after. The crucifixion deserves no glory. Human suffering deserves no glory. But those who endure it deserve our recognition, our support, and our honor. Now, it was the acceptance of Jesus to walk the path before him that filled him with the determination and power to endure the crucifixion. Thus, the glorification has begun. For God did not bypass this part of the human experience, but endured it all for our sakes, so that our sufferings can be endured, knowing that we are protected by God's very life within us, shared with us by the Son. And Christ's perfect, faithful love disarms human suffering, so its ability to sink the soul and rob it of its life is no longer present. Hence the quote, all the water of the ocean can't sink a ship unless it gets inside. And we're protected by the life and love of God. Named Eleanor, and she's this black poodle Labrador mix, and she loves her peoples, which is us. Now, the worst thing for her is when we go somewhere that she cannot go and she has to have crate time. She just looks so sad. But boy, when we return, she's like the happiest dog in the entire universe again. Now, today the disciples hear a troubling phrase from Christ, "You cannot follow me where I am going." I don't think we can naturally understand the disciples' troubled souls here, because the primary responsibility of a disciple was to follow the rabbi. Come follow me was Jesus' invitation in the beginning of this book. And they spent 3 years following. In modern education, teachers are seen as dispensers of information needed for the test, so the student can then go on to become a successful individual unit in the world. Now, if you lose your teacher, you just find another dispenser of information. But in early Jewish education, the goal was to imitate the teacher. Not merely imitate their teachers so they could do what the rabbi does or know what the rabbi knows, but to become who the teacher was in character. So to lose the teacher is to lose the content of what you're learning. And for a rabbi to say, I'm leaving and you can't follow me, this would be a devastating blow to the disciples' plans and very identities of who they are. Why can the disciples not follow? Well, they will, but they can't follow just yet. They all have the inevitable suffering and martyrdom that awaits them too. They will stand up to the religious and empirical powers in the same manner that Christ does, but they are not ready. They still think that worldly power, domination, manipulation, and violence is how you get things accomplished. Now, Jesus will repeat this phrase, "Where I am going, you cannot follow, but I will show you the way to the Father," in the next chapter. And then Thomas replies, "We don't even know where you're going. How can we know the way?" Now, Jesus replies with the very famous lines, "I am the way and the truth and the life." Now, when we use the word way, we can mean a few different things. The way is the physical road to travel, right? Like, this is the way to the store. Go down this road, take a left. That's the way there. But the way is also the means he used to travel the road. Like, the way I came on this road is by car or bike or walking. 3 different ways to be on the way. And the way is also the manner in which you travel, like that classic joke of the hunchback greeting the visitors of the castle saying, "Walk this way," and then shuffling in a direction, and then the visitors start shuffling just like the hunchback, walking the same way that he does, the manner that he does. The way Jesus is referring to here is not necessarily a geographical road to a geographical place, but the way of the righteous, quote, referred to in the Psalms. Jesus perfectly embodies it and says to his disciples, "Become who I am, for I am the way." This means that Jesus is the way to be on the way to the way. It's not merely about getting to a place, but about becoming a type of person that as you go. Because how you get something determines who you are when you have it. The journey shapes you. And radical nonviolent love that redeems is the way of Jesus. Jesus will travel this road first to sanctify it and pave the way for the disciples to follow. Because this perfect love of God is the only thing powerful enough to put an end to the cycle of violent hatred in the world. Peter Schultes was a Catholic priest in Chicago during the 1960s who was very active in the civil rights movement. He also led a youth choir in the basement of his church. And there was an ecumenical interracial conference at his parish which these kids were going to perform at. So he searched through their hymnal to try and find an appropriate song for the event. He couldn't find one. So he wrote one in a single day. And his obituary, he died in 2009, recalls this event. Here it is. Peter wrote the hymn, "They'll know we are Christians by our love," while he was a parish priest at St. Brendan's on the south side of Chicago in the 1960s. At the time, he was leading a youth choir out of the church basement and was looking for an appropriate song for a series of ecumenical interracial events. When he couldn't find such a song, he wrote the now famous hymn in a single day. His experiences at St. Brendan's and in the Chicago civil rights movement influenced him for the rest of his life. End quote. It seems very sad that Christ gives us this wonderful defining command, "Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Sounds like a really marking, defining command here. And yet we had no music to back it up. We lived as though this was not true, that the world would know us by our political power, our congregation size, or our pastoral platforms, or amount of our converts. The love of God became a means to get the power of the world on our side. And Christ's command is not merely to love, but love with the same kind of love that he had for them. Now, this is a self-sacrificial love that wills the good of another with our action and intention. To do so requires us to love without agenda, without a pressing need to convince, coerce, and convert. It is the type of love that lets another become who they are and express that in the world, without a preconceived cookie-cutter mold we're trying to press each soul into to get a consistent shape out of everything and everybody. Now, this type of love is very foreign to us because we see something we love and seek to get it. We see a flower, we love it, and then we pick it, and then it dies in a vase on our counter. We see a sunset, we love it, and we snap a picture of it, forever captured in our phone, but forgotten in our photo stream. We see a person, and we pursue them to have them, but then realize we can hold them, but never contain them. We want for ourselves the things we love, because our love is not perfect. God's love is not like that, and is, as Thomas Merton says, an unpossessive love. Now, today's benediction is a poem by Merton, which illustrates this kind of love. I don't think we can replicate it perfectly, but let's at least notice how different God's love is from ours. No need to moralize picking flowers or taking pictures or anything dumb like that. Just notice the different kind of love that God has for us and enjoy its difference.
Today's reading is from Thomas Merton's Book of Hours. The one who owns all things leaves them all to themselves, never takes them for their own, the way we take for our own and destroy. God leaves them to themselves and keeps giving to them, giving them all that they are, asking no thanks, save that they should receive and be loved and nurtured, and that they should increase and multiply and so praise God. God saw that all things were good, and God did not enjoy them. God saw that all things were beautiful, and did not want them. This love is not like ours. This love is unpossessive. This love, God's love, is pure because it needs nothing. Thomas Merton, Book of Hours.
Thank you again for joining us this week for our online service. If anybody would like to explore a little further, there are several things that you might consider doing at this point. Number one, you can participate. That's super easy. Just let us know, send an email, drop a call, and you can do a simple online recording that Dr. Tom can put there. Number two, you can partner with us. You can give financially, which helps keep this online service going strong. And you can certainly get the link that you'll see on the page that will help you do that. And you can subscribe so that you can keep updated on all the things that are happening with your online church family. We all hope that you find some hope, help, and healing this week. And God bless you on this coming week.